Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show on this Monday, March 9th, 2015. I'm David Knight, your host today, and we're going to be talking to Paul Joseph Watson. Before we go to Paul, I just want to repeat yet again that there is a bill up by the GOP to actually shut down the ATF. It's the ATF Elimination Act. It's being offered by Representative Jim Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin. He's introduced legislation to abolish the agency and transfer its duties to the FBI. He says their very framework is an affront to the Second Amendment and another reason why Congress should pass the ATF Elimination Act. Absolutely. Write your congressman, tell them you don't want them banning ammunition. You can write the ATF if you want to hear them laugh and tell them that you don't like them making up these kinds of rules and just arbitrarily declaring that they're going to take away certain ammunition. Of course, they'll extend that as they see fit. The key thing is support him in this to eliminate the ATF. Let's get rid of one of these parasitic, out-of-control government regulatory empires, and the ATF is a great one to start with. The ATF Elimination Act, write your congressman, tell them you want that passed. Now, Paul Joseph Watson is joining us now. I wanted to talk to Paul about this article he had up about Team Hillary conducting secret polls to test fallout of email scandal. What's up with that, Paul?
Well, yeah, this is an article that I wrote this morning, which emerged out of a blog in Iowa, and basically confirmed by other strategists.
We're getting a little
calling up people in Iowa, likely Hillary Clinton voters, and asking them a series of questions about their negative views towards Hillary Clinton. So at first, the speculation was, is this poll being run by one of her potential Democratic challengers, or is it being run by the Republicans? But it's since emerged that almost certainly it's being conducted by the Hillary Clinton campaign team itself. So it seems as though in the aftermath of this email scandal, they're very concerned about voter perception of Hillary Clinton, because up until now she's had over 60% favorability ratings over her presumptive Republican challengers, everyone from Jeb Bush to Rand Paul. That lead was fixed. It was locked in for months and months beforehand. Now we see that margin of favorability in comparison to the Republican candidates starting to slip, and it started to slip noticeably according to a new Washington Times poll after this email scandal emerged. So this is being done under the radar, but they're asking potential voters, likely voters in Iowa, a series of questions about whether Hillary Clinton can be trusted with national security, whether she's a trustworthy person, whether the Benghazi scandal was a real scandal or whether it was just hyped for political purposes. So it seems that Team Hillary is very concerned in the aftermath of this email scandal.
Yeah, and of course, when you started talking about this, you said there was speculation as to whether or not it could be one of her Democrat opponents. There's not really much in terms of Democrat opponents or the Republicans, because what they'll do, of course, Paul, is negative push polling. But that typically is done just before an election. That's when it has the most effect. Basically, you call up and you ask the people on the telephone, how would it affect you if you knew something, and you tell them something negative about that candidate. That's a way of basically dishing dirt on somebody without it sounding like you're dishing dirt on them. It's a very effective method, but I think this is far too early. As you pointed out, it looks like that's definitely coming from her. So she's concerned that this is going to affect her. It ought to put her in jail. It shouldn't just get her out of the running for being a Democrat nominee. But of course, we seem to be very tolerant of criminals at the upper level of government nowadays, aren't we?
Well, yeah, and of course, this was completely expected, but the other article I wrote today on InfoWars is now Hillary Clinton supporters are responding to the criticism of her because of this email scandal by characterizing it as sexist. So, years before or even after Obama was elected, criticism of Obama amongst his supporters was characterized and sidelined as racism. So now we're seeing the gender card being played over and over again by Hillary supporters. And this is going to characterize the next 18 months going forward. So the article on InfoWars, there's a Daily Kos blog, which actually says that concern over Hillary keeping her emails hidden is based on, quote, Republican fear of having a vagina in control of the White House. That's a quote from the Daily Kos article. They say that Hillary is an intelligent, philanthropic, loud and proud feminist that scares middle-aged white men. So that's the reason why she's being questioned over these emails, according to liberals and Hillary supporters, is not because it, illustrates the fact that she's completely untrustworthy, can't be trusted with national security. There's a huge gap, as we found out yesterday, from Gowdy, who's investigating this on CBS Face the Nation. There's a huge gap in the emails which show that it looks like she's hiding communications during the whole Libya debacle. Mm-hmm. But no, that's not an issue. That's not an example of untrustworthiness or corruption. That's nothing to be concerned about. And the only reason anybody's talking about it is because they're sexist.
Yeah. Yeah. But
completely
of course,
ridiculous.
That's all they see when they look at this is the fact that she's a woman. Nevertheless, we have, it's not a case of sexism. It's a case of felonious conduct. We've had Lisa Jackson from the EPA also playing games with her email, using a pseudonym to communicate. She was driven out of the EPA. She should have been put in prison. We got Lois Lerner pretending that she's lost all these emails that would expose her to having targeted as political enemies different Tea Party groups. She said, I lost all those emails. Hillary Clinton had her own private server for this. She didn't have just a different email account. She had her own private server. She was deliberately trying to set this apart into a parallel, non-transparent, secretive, illegal activity.
Exactly. And I mean, that's just one aspect of it. But again, if they can tie it to this gender issue, to this sexism issue, to this feminism issue, they hope to dull the criticism that is inevitably going to be hurled at Hillary Clinton. And there's another example of that today. The Clinton Foundation, the Bill, Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, released a video yesterday, which just by coincidence got on the front page of YouTube. Not that they're promoting it at all. It just got on the front page and got 300,000 views overnight. And it's about, basically it features a bunch of actresses, Cameron Diaz, all these top actresses, decrying, quote, the wage gap in the United States. Now, first of all, the wage gap is a completely contrived myth. This idea that women are being paid 77 cents on the dollar compared to men. That's the average earnings. If you take into factor differences in occupations and hours worked per week, when you account for all those factors, the wage gap completely vanishes. So from the very foundation, this argument is a debunked myth if you drill into the actual statistics, and yet it's one being pushed by feminists and by the Hillary Clinton campaign because they've tied their cart horse to third wave feminism. So they're using the same debunked, fraudulent arguments to advance this agenda that Hillary Clinton is going to be fighting for women, for equality in the United States, when actually her own foundation, the Clinton Foundation, who released this video, pays its female staff just 63 cents for every dollar that top senior male executives who work for the Clinton Foundation make. So there is a real wage gap controversy, and it's within the Clinton Foundation itself. Nationwide in the United States, it's a complete myth. But if you look at the Clinton Foundation and their IRS tax filings have come out, they're paying a 37% salary disparity between what they pay male executives and what they pay female executives.
And that's the key thing. That's the key thing, comparing executives to executives.
Saying they're going to fix the wage gap in the United States. Again, rampant hypocrisy. She is advancing that wage gap within her own foundation.
Exactly. And that's the key, as you're pointing out, within her own foundation, when they look at female executives versus male executives within that same business, they see that kind of wage disparity. That would be a genuine disparity. But when they look at it across the population as a whole, like Cameron Diaz did, then they're not comparing and adjusting for the fact that women are in a different kind of profession than men would be, or that they're not working their entire life, or that they're working part-time and staying at home with the children part-time. The different career choices that they make will adjust that. So it's a very simplistic thing to go back at the data and just kind of cut it and say, women's salaries and men's salaries and not drill down and look at it so that you know you're making valid comparisons with those. That's how they get there. But, Paul, you're talking about how this is within her foundation. There's a story on Drudge Report today in the New York Times saying that she faces a test of record as a woman's advocate. So here they are saying this is people coming after her just because she's a woman, so we need to defend her because she's a woman. And yet her foundation is accepting millions of dollars, according to the New York Times, in donations from Middle Eastern countries that are known for violence against women and for denying them their basic freedoms, not allowing them to drive cars or whatever. One of the nations that comes to mind, of course, is Saudi Arabia, one of the most oppressive regimes anywhere, and, of course, one of our closest allies to the CIA. What are your comments, Paul?
Well, it's par for the course because, you know, feminists share the same rampant hypocrisy and ignorance of actual women's rights issues.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and I'm talking to Paul Joseph Watson. We've been talking about Hillary Clinton's missing emails, and there's a story up on the Drudge Report, actually by National Journal. Ron Fournier says emails may be a key to addressing the, quote, pay-to-play whispers at the Clinton Foundation. In other words, follow the money. Are people giving money to the Clinton Foundation in order to get influence? Are they buying influence? That's almost a self-obvious question, but let's go to this exchange on CNN. I want to get Paul's comments on this. This is State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki commenting on foreign donations, and there's some commentary from this author, the National Journal, as well as from Julie Pace of the AP. So here's the State Department spokesperson talking about Hillary Clinton accepting these foreign donations at the Clinton Foundation.
We have reviewed every donation that has been submitted, but in this case, the fact that the process was not followed in this particular incident does not raise concerns with us.
Like to review, and we have reviewed every donation. Turns out that's not true. They didn't review any of them.
And of course, it's the cover-up, isn't it? It wasn't so much the crimes of Nixon, but it was the cover-up that was really serious. The cover-up that they internalized by helping to propagate that Nixon made his own by covering up. Your comments on that, Paul?
Well, the cover-up is in place because this directly threatens brand Clinton. Mm-hmm. Just like, you know, Obama was built on, you know, the first black president representing the entirety of America. If she's taken down by this kind of scandal that she's receiving donations from governments in the Middle East and corporate interests in the Middle East that are fundamentally diametrically opposed to women's rights, which is where, you know, I get emails from feminists, actual real feminists who care about women's rights issues, who work in the Middle East, and they're appalled by the kind of rhetoric that comes out of third wave feminists in the United States, in the West. So, you know, if that's exposed that Hillary has been taking donations from these kind of groups, it will completely eviscerate a large part of the foundation of her campaign for 2016, because she's tied her entire campaign to this issue of being a woman's advocate. That's what it's all going to be based around, heading towards 2016 over the next 18 months, which is why she threw her support behind this huge NBA campaign to basically lecture men about how they've got it so easy and how they need to do more housework in the home. So that's why it's crystallizing into such a big issue right before we learn who's actually going to run for 2016. And that's why they're so defensive, because it could derail her entire campaign before it even begins.
That's why you got the New York Times, not typically opposed to Hillary, saying she faces the test of her record if she's going to claim that she's a woman's advocate. And of course, Paul, when we look at what's happening in countries like Saudi Arabia and others against women, it's also men's rights that they're attacking there in those countries as well. I mean, look at the blogger who's getting flogged repeatedly, life-threatening punishment that they gave against him. But they do all that to men, which is bad enough, but then they do that as well to women, and then they have some special things that they do for women, don't they? That's what makes this so egregious.
Exactly. And that kind of genuine, real repression, which actual women's rights advocates write to me about on a regular basis, is what third wave feminism completely ignores. It's like the Muslim rape scandal in England. for 17 years, there were groups of Muslim Pakistani men abducting white British girls off the streets, and the local government and the police dismissed the issue, called all the victims liars because they didn't want to be called politically incorrect or racist. That was a huge controversy over the past few months in the United Kingdom. Not a word from all the third wave feminists, the most prominent feminists on the internet, not a single word, complete radio silence. And it's this hypocrisy which characterizes the entire movement.
She'll do anything to pose for that. We got to go to a commercial break. We're going to be right back with Paul Joseph Watson. We should be concerned about human rights, but especially somebody who takes money from the people who specifically target women for special punishment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The knowledge of the ancients, tried and true, trusted herbs and extracts fused with the latest nutraceutical science. Introducing the all-new Ancient Defense Herbal Immunity Blend, crafted with over 14 key ancient herbs and extracts to supercharge and prepare your body for what experts admit is the most dangerous season of the year. We have rejected hundreds of other formulations in our quest to bring you what is simply the most powerful and comprehensive proprietary formula that we have ever created in the realm of herbal immunity. For the last 2 years, our team has been working with top doctors, nutritionists, and chemists to develop the ultimate nutraceutical formulation. Experience the benefits of combining over 14 ancient herbs and extracts with exciting new advances in nutraceutical science. For a limited time, get 25% off on this introductory offer. Visit ancientdefense.com or call 888-253-3139. ancientdefense.com.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show on this Monday, March 9th, 2015. I'm David Knight, your host today, and we're going to be talking to Paul Joseph Watson. Before we go to Paul, I just want to repeat yet again that there is a bill up by the GOP to actually shut down the ATF. It's the ATF Elimination Act. It's being offered by Representative Jim Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin. He's introduced legislation to abolish the agency and transfer its duties to the FBI. He says their very framework is an affront to the Second Amendment and another reason why Congress should pass the ATF Elimination Act. Absolutely. Write your congressman, tell them you don't want them banning ammunition. You can write the ATF if you want to hear them laugh and tell them that you don't like them making up these kinds of rules and just arbitrarily declaring that they're going to take away certain ammunition. Of course, they'll extend that as they see fit. The key thing is support him in this to eliminate the ATF. Let's get rid of one of these parasitic, out-of-control government regulatory empires, and the ATF is a great one to start with. The ATF Elimination Act, write your congressman, tell them you want that passed. Now, Paul Joseph Watson is joining us now. I wanted to talk to Paul about this article he had up about Team Hillary conducting secret polls to test fallout of email scandal. What's up with that, Paul?
Well, yeah, this is an article that I wrote this morning, which emerged out of a blog in Iowa, and basically confirmed by other strategists.
We're getting a little
Calling up people in Iowa, likely Hillary Clinton voters, and asking them a series of questions about their negative views towards Hillary Clinton. So, months beforehand, now we see that margin of favorability in comparison to the Republican candidates starting to slip. And it started to slip noticeably, according to a new Washington Times poll, after this email scandal emerged. So this is being done under the radar, but they're asking potential voters, likely voters in Iowa, a series of questions about whether Hillary Clinton can be trusted with national security, whether she's a trustworthy person, whether the Benghazi scandal was a real scandal or whether it was just hyped for political purposes. So
of course,
at first, the speculation was, is this poll being run by one of her potential Democratic challengers, or is it being run by the Republicans? But it's since emerged that almost certainly it's being conducted by the Hillary Clinton campaign team itself. So it seems as though in the aftermath of this email scandal, they're very concerned about voter perception of Hillary Clinton because Up until now, she's had over 60% favorability ratings over her presumptive Republican challengers, everyone from Jeb Bush to Rand Paul. That lead was fixed. It was locked in for months and